Welcome. Jump into the Compassionate Leaders Circle podcast, where leading with love isn't just nice, it's genius. I'm Laurel Donnellan.
And I'm Darrell Brown. We'll unpack business strategies infused with empathy and action, driving both profit and purpose. Our world is ever-changing, so discover how the savvy leader wears compassion as their power suit.
Gunjan Aggarwal, it's so wonderful having you today. I'm excited about our conversation. Gunjan is the founder and CEO of a wonderful company called Learn with Leaders. Why don't we start with that, Gunjan? Tell me a little bit about Learn with Leaders, and then we're going to have a really interesting conversation about a concept that you call intellectual crushes. But tell me about Learn with Leaders first.
Thank you, Laurel, for having me. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you. Learn with Leaders, as you've been an instrumental part in getting it to where it is today, is to inspire high school students across the globe to follow their dreams and experience different career skills before they make their choices, their career choices, their college choices. It was set up by, a lot of school pressure on my kids, and I felt the whole education system needed a change. We've been very blessed. We've now impacted over 15,000 kids in about 80 countries. So completely thrilled with what we do.
Yes, and I've had the pleasure of working with you and your students, and it's been a highlight of my life, honestly. And I'm so grateful that LinkedIn brought us together. But we've been good friends and have had many conversations around life and spirit and love. And I've always been intrigued because you brought this idea to me years ago about intellectual crushes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So tell me what an intellectual crush is and why it's important.
Laurel, I hope I don't say anything that you'll have to edit and my husband's going to be very upset about.
We won't share this podcast with him, though.
because it just treads on a very thin line. And that is the line that I enjoy working on. So I've been an entrepreneur, Laurel, for 17 years now, came from very big companies. I think the road of entrepreneurship is far more lonely for an entrepreneur than it is, when you're working in a company. Because really, it's like you're always fighting something, trying to solve something, but you're usually alone. Everybody's counting on you. I think when I was on this journey, there came a point where I felt like everything was stagnating. I wasn't feeling challenged. I wasn't feeling stimulated. And that's when I started this series, if you remember, called Coffee, with Leaders. And it was probably the best thing I did for myself during COVID. And I started connecting with these amazing people across the world. And you were one of the first people to adopt it, where we would come and have 1 hour of these coffee chats. We would invite 15 to 20 high school students, and we would discuss topics that were never discussed before. I just felt so energized after those sessions and meeting those people. And I started questioning myself, where was I and where is this taking me? And every time I met someone with whom I could have a conversation about, even just about life, even just about, how do you think about the mind? How does the mind impact our emotions? How do you connect all of that together to create a better life and a balanced relationship? I felt that these intellectual conversations were my driving force that was completely missing in my life. Like when we met and we started talking about how Learn with Leaders was doing, what we were intended to set up. And you remember our first session just went on for 2.5 hours instead of the 60 minutes. The kids didn't want to leave. They just had so many questions. And, how do they set up their dream career? What is the path? Who tells them what is right, what is wrong? I think it's just been a journey where I met so many different people. I made so many friends across the world. And all of this happened in COVID, where everybody was stuck, right? Just sitting at home. And we made such good friends that I felt the biggest mistake we do in our life is putting the burden on one person to fulfill all those intellectual needs. And I'll dwell a little more. We especially from an Indian culture, you brought up saying, okay, you marry one person, you're with one person, but ultimately you put so much pressure on that one relationship to fulfill every part of your life that it is set up for failure in that case. And it could also translate to a friend. It could translate to somebody you're dependent on, because that person will never have all your answers. And when I started having these intellectual crushes, I met some amazing people. I met people who'd written like outstanding books. They were authors. I met a chief Navy SEAL. They had done so many different things, so many challenges, so many things that I could not imagine myself in those situations of war, of actually fighting. That it just made my life feel uh, so silly, right? Like the problems we say are problems felt so small in front of their perspective of life and the challenges they faced. And I felt that all of that kept adding on to who I was and what I could achieve by just connecting with people and these intellectual crushes who started bringing this happy energy in my life. They were just intellectual crushes because it's their mind that made me feel and grow from a different planet perspective than what I knew from my peer set. And you know how my network's grown, right? Like in the last 3.5 years, I have friends literally in every country today. And these are intellectual people. These are people who love talking about education. They want to make a change. I have such a good friend as a principal in Canada, and she is right now using the best technologies in her school that are unheard of in most K-12 schools. So whenever I hear of these things, I feel like, okay, there's so much translation to be done across countries. It is just this whole exchange of ideas which brings in ultimate change. And I feel people get stuck if they don't bring in the intellectual crushes.
Well, I think part of this conversation we've had over the years is I don't have a husband. I'm single, but I have a lot of love in my life. And I definitely have the privilege of talking to people every day that inspire me, who I really fall in love with in a different way, that I'm inspired by. I love talking to people like yourself who love what they do and have been on a hard journey of often sacrifice and hard work and sweat to do what they do. And it's so fun to love what you do, love what you have to learn, and share that with other people. It's very exciting.
You're absolutely right, Laurel. I think what I realized working with you as well is that this whole love and work energy is very hand in hand. Unless you love what you do, you can never make anything big, because then it's just like one of those boring tasks that you're trying to achieve. I just don't get it how anybody will get anywhere with that. It's just like that mundane thing that you don't like doing and you're doing it, right? Like that's like with a relationship. And love is this energy that makes everything beautiful. It just makes everything more powerful. And I feel like people do get through their life doing things, not loving things like that they do. You know what I mean? And I think this realization, I mean, people would say, oh, you're saying it. People keep saying, I'm a painter. I can't make my passion my job. But at the end of the day, everybody can do that if they seriously put their mind, heart, soul into it and say, yes, this is what I want to do. I left an investment banking job, Laurel. I would have been making tons of money today. And how many people in the world leave that job? I left it because I believed that this is not for me and there is something else calling. People said I was crazy. And I love it when people do that, because I know that many people won't try doing. LWL has one story where everybody laughed at me like you've like lost it. This is never gonna work. I said, awesome. At least 1,000 people in my entrepreneurship journey right now are not gonna try their hand at this idea. But that is what love is. It is illogical, right? It never has an explanation. You always feel a soul connection. And that is why I say there is always some soul connection with the work you do. And unless there is soul connection, you'll feel like you're working. I never feel like I'm working. Never. I am literally 24/7, and people say, oh, you're a workaholic. I'm like looking at them. What does that even mean? Because I don't feel I'm working ever, unless I'm doing some really mundane operations job, which I don't like. But at the end of it, everything is love, soul, energy, and what you bring into it. Even, the smallest things in your life can get charged up with positive energy if you just step back and think, why are you doing it? I'm reading this very interesting book, which talked about, which talks about yourself and your mind as two different people. When people come and say, oh, I just can't live in myself anymore, which means that there is you and somebody else living inside you, right? And that inside is the mind. So the mind's job is to make you forget the now. It always wants to bring in the past or the future. So it ultimately ruins the now for you, and you can never feel it. But, if you go back to the Japanese philosophy, Ikagai, if you're in a really, really soul connected conversation, you will be in the now. You will be in the flow. You will neither be in your past nor on the future, but a true intellectual crush will bring you to the present.
Well, there
It's
you
your
go.
flow.
There's an argument for intellectual crushes. They are spiritual, right? They do bring you in the now. They bring you into connection with another human. They bring you in connection with the divine. I'm curious about a little part of your story because I think this would help our listeners. When you left corporate, did you already know what you were going to do, or did you just have a feeling you needed to leave to figure it out?
Laurel, so I was doing investment banking, which is very much number crunching, big deals, how that works. I knew I wanted to do something in the education space, and I did not know why. I just had this feeling that I wanted to teach, I wanted to learn, and I felt really like stuck with what I was doing. And that is the reason why most people thought that this is crazy, right? Like, you're an investment banker who thinks of being a teacher. And I did not want to exactly be a teacher then, but what I wanted to do was create an organization that would spark ideas across the world. I think that is what always interested me. So, yes, I did not know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to be in the education space, and I did not want to do investment banking. So, at least I knew what I did want to do.
Sometimes it's really good to know what you don't want and
Yeah.
to just get away from it. But I love that you had a spark of an idea, but you didn't have a business plan. I think some people think they have to figure everything out before they make a change.
So, Laurel, I have done those mistakes as well of turning an entrepreneur, right? Like, oh, you need to have a business plan, you need to figure it all out. I think 17 years and finally non-med leaders has taught me one thing, that our sixth sense is actually very, very strong. It's stronger than any business plan. If I had set up a business plan for non-med leaders, I'm giving you in writing, we would have never started. Never started. It would have never made sense to anyone. And 6 months to 1 year, we would have just been working on those Excel sheets like my investment banking job. And somebody would have said, oh, this is a terrible idea, leave it. We did not think. We just did not think. We just did it. And till date, we don't think. You know how we work, right? Like, we're very driven, very passionate. We just, I felt like some of those years, if we were not thinking so much, there's a lot more we would have done. But because you're taught that way, right? Oh, you need to do an MVP, oh, you need to make sure there's market research. I mean, trust me, a really good idea will be canned by then. And I have an idea which has got canned because of that thinking. You actually lose energy to execute by the time you make that paper plan.
Well, everything I wrote a business prospectus a few months ago, and it's just doesn't even, I wrote it in August, and here we are in October, and nothing in it.
I mean, I spent months on a business plan, right? Months with days and nights on it. And this when we were looking for funding last year sometime. Laurel, I was going through my emails for those 6 months. They were just about investors' business plan. And I just, when I actually pulled the plug and said, I am not going to raise money, is because I felt like in that much time, I would have made more revenue.
Yeah.
And those 6 months were just like, okay, this is not working for me. This is not where I'm gonna be. If I'm doing well, if I need the money, it will come. It would not need such extensive level of preparation. Well, I'm not saying it's bad idea to make a business plan. I mean, all the investors are going to hate me for this right now. But I think a true entrepreneur should be able to sell a business on a paper napkin, and that's it. And a good investor should be able to buy it off that. Because if you really know the pulse of a business, it's either a yes or a no. I think it's like love at first sight. Either you have it or you don't. Like you just feel it or you don't feel it. And I think God's given us all that ability to judge for ourselves on, and that is where this whole intellectual crushes comes in. There are people you can talk for hours to, and the people I can't talk for even 60 seconds. I really like find it hard. And sometimes my business partners have to fill in because I'll just go quiet. Me going quiet is like a very big event. So, but some people's energy just don't connect with you, and then you can't do much. You just can't connect. So it's not like everybody's meant for you to talk.
Right. Well, it's sort of like you can't marry 10 people. Well, some people do, but we're not talking about that today.
Well, my son asked me that, why can't you marry multiple people?
Um, so so it sounds like this whole coffee with leaders started you off on meeting new people all over the world, and you continue to do that. But for our listeners that may not have a platform like this, what advice do you have for finding intellectual crushes? If you're intrigued by this idea of having more connection and more interesting conversations in your life, how do you go about that if you're just sitting at home right now wondering how to do that?
Laurel, when I say the truth, people never believe me. I'm going to say it again. Cold calling has been my best friend forever. And I think today, if you feel like you want to talk to somebody, say from the AI space, and you can just go on LinkedIn and say, listen, hey, I'm very intrigued with this topic. Would you like to have a chat? People are very, very open. I made like hundreds of connections through that platform. I think LinkedIn is an amazing platform to connect with any kind of intellectual person that you want to. And when I started Laurel, I really didn't know who I wanted to connect to, because I came from such a stuck up place, as if I was in a box. If somebody asked me what topic you wanted to talk about, I did not even have a topic on my mind. And so I started thinking, who are the best people to give me an idea for a topic? I'm telling you this today. I was like, okay, let me find out some journalists who write interesting things and reach out to them and try and chat and, find out more about a topic that they've written on. And that's where that journey started. Second was I started really looking up people who are subject matter experts. Like I wanted to talk about AI. I was very, very intrigued with its impact in education. That's how I started talking to a lot of principals, who were leading the education from a technology perspective. So I think if you kind of just think on the topics that interest you, some people are heavily into gaming. There are some gaming experts out there, like crazy esports people. Uh, you can just reach out to people and say, listen, I was thinking about this. Would you like to have a chat? Typical hit rate for normal chats could be 2 out of 20, could be 2 out of 50. It also depends on how you build up your LinkedIn profile, how open you are to chatting with others. But I think that is why I want to bring up this intellectual crushes, that it is very different from a dating app or trying to reach out to people. Because at the end of the day, this is about the mind and who can challenge you or make you grow on a topic. Now, sitting and doing an asynchronous program does not solve that for me. Somebody, oh, do this AI course. I'm like, what will I do with the AI course, right? Because I had questions, I wanted answers.
Well, you and I met through LinkedIn. So,
Exactly.
We have
So,
a real friendship and a real partnership in business. And I think that, I would also add, call people on the phone. Like nobody calls me. So when I get a phone call or a well-crafted voicemail, I'm more likely to call you back, right?
yeah, and I think that's WhatsApp more in a lot of countries. But Laurel, at the end of the day, before you can call someone, you need to have context, right? In the sense of somebody selling. So I think LinkedIn the one thing it does is it solves for a little bit of background check, because you also don't want to land up talking to somebody you don't know. So for me, what happens is if I know I have common connections, I know that somebody knows this person, it automatically is reassuring that, I know this person somehow.
Yeah. And
So,
safety,
and then you
safety.
can call them and say, hey, listen, I know you through this person and just have a few questions. Would you have some time to set up next week and we can talk? And that's exactly what I did. And look at where we are today, right? Like if I didn't make that reach out, we would have never known each other ever.
Right.
There was no chance that we would have ever met. Like,
Yeah.
we're so
I mean,
far away.
I have lots of meetings today, but two are with people I really, really, really love. I would say two are with people that I have intellectual crushes with, four. And both of them I met on LinkedIn, and they've turned into real, relationships.
Actually, Laurel, you're right. I have 6 intellectual crushes and all 6 I met on LinkedIn.
So
No,
I think that's if you want to have a great day, talk to people who you admire and you can learn from, right? And you actually, love. It's so funny. I try, well, I don't try. I do help people lead with love, and I help companies bring compassion and love into their company. And it's so funny. We'll talk about loving our sports teams or loving ice cream, but we have a hard time talking about loving our colleagues, the people that we spend the most time with.
That's because it's misunderstood, Laurel. It's really misunderstood when you're trying to appreciate someone. And that is what I'm trying to break here. Because everybody wants to be told what they're good at, right? So when you talk about intellectual crushes, these people move you forward. They do not push you backwards, because 90% of the people will try to push you down, tell you negative things, why this won't work. Oh, your business has this complication. Oh, this is why this, you have a million people telling you why something won't work. But it is that very few people who will always say, hey, you know what? This is the space that you need to target. This is where you're good at. This is your strength. If somebody told me 20 years ago, look, you're a people's person, you should be doing very, very high quality sales, I would have just not wasted all the years doing what I did, And I'm just saying that the right intellectual crush leaves you with this very happy energy that you moved a little forward, because, your soul is hungry. Your soul is always hungry for interesting things to learn, and we don't realize that. Learning is also like food for the soul. Like when you read a good book and you need somebody to talk about it. Like when I'm reading something, I literally want to talk about every chapter, because I am so energized with that thought that when I discuss it, the thought becomes a reality in my head. But it's really my soul wanting to talk about it. That, how do you react to this piece? And what should I do with it next? Should I take it in my life? Should I not? Should I just ignore it like something I read? So, we as human beings were made different by God from animals or trees or any other living thing because of the human connection. And we got to know how to use it best.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if we don't appreciate people around us, we don't spread love around us, where will the world go? The world is going to get frustrated. People are going to be unhappy around you, and that's not the energy you want to create. You want a very altar like feeling, like, okay, yeah, this is my sacred space and I love being here.
Love your passion for your work, and I love your attitude about sales, because I think you bring this concept of intellectual crushes to sales. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is the secret to being a successful entrepreneur who, I think all of us as entrepreneurs have to do sales, and some of us don't like that word. So tell me about that.
Honestly, it's shocking how many people don't like that word. When I interview people, the lowest resume count we get is for sales. And I feel like if there is one thing you need to learn in life, is sales. Because whether you're an entrepreneur or you are working somewhere, you will be always selling. You'll either be selling yourself to, pitch your ideas, or you're selling your, product of your company. But selling starts from when we are children, right? When you want something from your parents, you sell them saying, oh, you know what, this is why I need it. And you make every story possible in the world to get it, right? So I think very young, we know the concept. But slowly, I think there is this negativity attached to sales. Oh, I can't go sell something. I think the biggest piece that people miss in sales is the value proposition. If you are offering someone something of value, they will listen. There is no way they will not listen to you. So for me, sales is building a relationship because I know that I can add value to what you do. But if you're selling a product you don't believe in, then your sales is bad because you know there is a problem with the product and you're just trying to sell something. That is where your soul is not connecting with your product. If your soul connects with the product, I am selling 24/7, whether I like it or not. It just happens for me. Because I truly believe in what I do and I know that it has a value, it creates impact. Now, when that is connected, it is never about selling. Like if you see my meetings, when I close deals, uh, these are not sales calls. These are like, hey, this is my pain point. What do you do to solve it? These are conversations. These are very interesting conversations. So I think that for me, sales came the hard way. I didn't have a choice. I just had to suddenly sell and I didn't know what to do. Like, how do you go sell? I was so scared. I was so shy that I couldn't talk to anybody. I know it's hard to believe, Lauren, but yeah, I was that person. And when I discovered meeting people and how good I was at that, I was like, oh my God, like the only thing I am good at is this, like at building relationship, like creating product. I'm hyper creative, you know that. I create products in a call. Like in a half an hour call, I'll create a new product in my head and sell it by the end of the call. I mean, then my team has to execute it. But the thing I always tell young generation also who come to me is that if you have to start somewhere, start with sales, because once you've done that, nothing else is hard. And once you fall in love with sales, you'll never be able to do anything else. It's it's the energy that it brings with it. I I actually been told so many times to start a course on teaching people how to cold call and do sales. Like a lot of people come and ask me, listen, can you teach me? I mean, I obviously haven't had time to put it all together, but uh,
I
it's
think
you.
you could call it cold calling is my friend. Like that would be a really good course. And I think you've also in this conversation, I think there might be an app out there called Intellectual Crushes. So I
Oh, we
think
almost made it, Lauren, and then I did not launch it because I was scared of the thin line it was treading on. So
yeah,
it's
I do think though we have LinkedIn. It's already there,
yes, I
right?
think LinkedIn is there, and the app was a very, very interesting, thing. And but I think intellectual crushes, Laurel, at the end of the day, can solve everything that you have in life. You have a problem, reach out to someone, have a chat. You'll just feel like, wow, I just did that. I just, when we talk to unknown people, Laurel, uh, it's almost like doing something you fear. It's like going bungee jumping because there is so much uncertainty and people are so underconfident on themselves. Oh, what will this person think of me? Is my hair looking good? What if I say this? What if I say that? I just say that just go have a talk, just chat, just have a conversation because the right people will make you feel motivated and not put you down. You're just so used to having people who put you down that you don't accept or you don't welcome people who can make you feel forward. But the day you find that one person who makes you feel like that, then you know what you want more of that.
Well, as I listen to your story, Gujan, I know your story of Learn with Leaders, and your company has become a very successful education disruptor. It has lots of parents, educators, and many students around the world in your community. And it sounds like maybe through intellectual crushes, you figured out what you were doing.
The whole idea came through that, Laurel. I was not even sure what we were going to do. And when I started talking to professors at universities, and these are top ranked universities, right? I'm talking about Ivy Leagues. they talk to me like friends. Like even today, I can just message them and say, could you do this for me? And these are people who charge like $10,000 an hour, and they'll just do it, because I asked. So I think sometimes what happens is people are too scared to reach out to senior people. And, oh, why would he talk to me? I am so junior. But I just feel like, can you just put all of that in a box outside? Like all the questions in your head, it's noise. It's not reality. It's again your mind playing games with you, trying to tell you, oh, don't do this, don't do this, do you. It's the day you leave that out. My first boss when I was in Arthur Anderson, I still respect him. And I called him sir. And I was straight out of college, very scared. He was supposed to be very, very like this, the top shot person in Anderson. He said, why are you calling me sir? Call me by my first name. And from today onwards, even if you're sitting with the sea of Schlumberger with me, you are not going to call anybody sir, ever. And I was like, they're much older, blah, blah, blah. He said, look, if you want to start a conversation at a common ground, then no sir and ma'am. Because that's like in school where you're telling them that they're the teacher and you're the student. But you're both at the same level of learning because you could have something to teach today that I don't know. And I think that stuck with me very, very long to say that, of course, there are times that you have to call people sir and ma'am because it's out of respect you do it. But I think the bigger lesson he taught me is that you shouldn't be scared of somebody's designation. Just because there is a designation attached to someone, it doesn't mean they're not people who like to talk. They love to talk because the more senior they are, they're more lonely. And they love mentoring people, who can benefit from their journey.
Yeah. Good people love to tell their story and they love helping.
Exactly. And, if somebody doesn't want to help, doesn't want to talk, it's on them. It's not on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't stop trying. I never stop trying. And as I said, cold calling is like my passion. I think I have this thrill. I was a Sherlock fan as a kid. So I was always like cracking Sherlock stories before the serial ended. So I feel like cold calling is like playing a game like Sherlock where you're decoding and understanding how you can get the best hit rate from this person. And it always works. You just need to have a detective mind when you do cold calling. I keep telling people sales is nothing but detective work. If you do your work well, you will get a response. You can't spray and pray. Definitely not.
Well, I always love talking to you, and I feel like we'll definitely do more of these podcasts because I think it's fun, and I love you so much, and I want to spend more time with you this way. Tell our listeners how they can learn more about your company and you.
So the URL of my website is learnwithleaders.com. It has a direct booking link. So anytime they want to chat with me, they can just book a direct meeting from the website. Very approachable. They just have to leave a note that they want to see me. And the team sets up a meeting. It's very, very easy to reach out. And of course, I use LinkedIn like more than my phone messages. So anytime you want to reach out, I'm very, very approachable on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laurel. This has been another very interesting intellectual crush journey.
And that's a heart-wrapped episode of the Compassionate Leader Circle podcast. May your compass always point to kindness.
As you navigate the world, let compassion be your North Star. Join us next time as we continue to redefine success, one heart-led decision at a time.
Lead wisely, lead with heart. You can learn more about us at compassionateleaderscircle.com.